Hello everybody, my name is Ian Kirkpatrick. I'm an author and robot, and today I'm going to be doing a book review of Savior's Sister, The Savior's Sister, by Jenna Moreci. And it's a little more, I guess, than a book review. I'm going to go through the entirety of the plot, dropping some thoughts as I go, and then round up on some of the big takeaways that I have, or big points or problems or thoughts that I had throughout this novel. But before we get started, number one, if you enjoy what I do on this channel, please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Number two, if you would like to be featured on the channel, please check out the two links in the description below, Lemoy and Fresh Meat Feature. And number three, if you would like an ARC copy of my satirical novel, Boom Boom Boom, check out the link down below. That's all that I've got to say. So, we're back at it. Not sure why. Maybe it was just to see, okay, I kind of know why. It was to see how merciless Leila really was from her perspective, and she did not disappoint. I'm gonna be honest with you. Jeffrey Dahmer had more regret when killing people than Leila. And 100% after reading this, I'm pretty sure that Leila was evil, Brontes was righteously trying to exterminate. But you be the judge. I'll look forward to your thoughts and comments after you're done watching the video. But get ready because we're in for a long ride. I've got a lot of thoughts. Probably obvious by the length time on this video. So starting out, we've got a prologue where Leila, Delphi, and Cosima are children. They could be 6, they could be 10, I wasn't entirely sure, but they were children and they were playing pretend together. Leila and Delphi are being straight up mean to Cosima, and who knows why. Brontes, Leila's dad, comes in and calls her over. However, she walks up to him being talked to by some other guy, and it sounds like they're planning something. Likely some sort of assassination attempt, because the man Brontes is standing with tells Leila to go away. Leila steps back but hangs around and listens to her father and the one guy talk about, yup, an assassination attempt that they are planning against Leila. This makes me wonder why Brontes even called Leila over to begin with, because Brontes doesn't talk to Leila about anything after he's done with the assassination plans. If this whole thing was done so that Leila could hear them talk about the assassination attempt, this was such a weak way to start out the book. No character logic is going to be used here. And that's pretty much the sign that we're getting. Brute force plot, everybody, so get ready. Also, apparently, instead of raising Leila to worship the ground he walks on or throwing her against a rock as a babe, Brontes thought that the best course of action was to wait until she was, a child, and then a mobile child, and then try to assassinate her, because there's also some overhearing of Brontes being like, I should have just killed the baby. And yeah, I'm wondering why you didn't, bro. None of this makes sense. Leila's solution to this assassination attempt is to do something herself, because she has always been and always will be alone and forced to take care of herself forever. Her solution is to approach the daughter or granddaughter or adopted child who belongs to one of her father's assassins/associates and threaten to kill that child. Romulus is the man that she will be threatening. But wait, there's more. So this girl that she threatens is Pippa, and Leila knows that the girl is mentally delayed. She threatens her life to her parents' face, but Pippa's totally oblivious to it the whole time. And once Leila's got Romulus to agree, she abducts Pippa into her closest maidens circle along with Delphi and Cosima, because she's got to keep Pippa close. So now you know why Leila's dragging Pippa around all the time. I don't know how this situation is supposed to help Leila look good, because she looks like a demon spawn right out the gate, which sort of makes Brontes look justified in wanting her dead. What if the savior truly is just evil, and of course she'd hate Brontes because he's trying to stop her? Theories. So, while Romulus agrees with Leila to figure out how to stop the assassination attempt, he tells Leila that there's only one way to do this. She must give up all of the power she holds as the savior and carry the name only. This doesn't mean giving up her mystical abilities, though. It just means basically giving up the title of authority to her father, who is already the king, who you'd think ruled the realm anyway. Leila agrees, thus making her both the most powerful and the most victimized person in the realm. The prologue legit ends with Leila looked over her shoulder, leaving her eyes on the man behind her, hatred bubbling within the heart of a child. Except she wasn't a child. Not anymore. You work for me now. I don't know how you're supposed to take this as anything other than Leila being an evil witch. So now time skip forward to modern day where 20-year-old Leila is watering the earth with her body light. She's called to a meeting, so she collects herself, and her plan is to approach the meeting angry to try to get what she wants, since she never gets what she wants, poor baby. She says that no one will suspect anything is amiss because she's always like this, and it won't be expectedly out of character. You can tell what kind of girl Leila's been all growing up. Leila and her maidens are making their way through the palace when they see a new guard named Asher, and Leila is instantly thirsting for him. He is so fine. So Cosima tries to wingman for her, introducing Leila to the hottie McHot pants, but Leila trips and exposes herself as the savior, which causes the guard to panic and give himself a concussion. Leila heals him and moves on to the meeting. Cosima tries to make Leila feel better about what just happened, but Leila snaps at her, depressed, and doesn't like that Cosima's trying to be nice. Now, after the meeting, no one knows who called it. Turns out it was Leila all along, who apparently forgot about her own meeting and had to be summoned by her maidens and reminded of it. But the whole thing's called because she's 20 now and wants to take over the kingdom. This I don't entirely get either, since she made the deal when she was a kid that she is no longer the ruler or having any authority whatsoever. She's just a name and an icon at this point, and somebody that waters the earth with her light. Of course, this isn't brought up by anybody, but everyone in the council is like, you can't rule, you don't know what you're doing. Leila then tries to cancel the Saviors tournament, which would essentially put her into that leadership role by giving her a husband. Brontes steps in saying, you have no power, and things will go as planned. Suck it, bitch. Meeting adjourned. You know, putting his foot down where it belongs. After the meeting, Leila meets with Pippa's guardian, Romulus, to get information about the tournament. Romulus begs Leila to show the assassins mercy because they're all greedy or scared, and that's why they're taking orders from Brontes. You can't hold that against them. But Leila's like, fuck no. They all deserve no mercy. Bitches should fear me, not my dad. Confirming that Leila is in fact evil. Leila is then given the name of the Vault Keeper as a place to get more information from. She goes to the Vault Keeper's chambers, catches him jacking off, threatens him with a knife, and then binds him. The dude accuses Leila of killing off senators, and Leila's only response is, yup. What are you gonna do about it, loser? The Vault Keeper is like, we can change the law so that you can have your power back. Please don't hurt me. But that doesn't work on Leila because she's like, look, I really want to hurt you, like, so bad, dude. So that's not gonna cut it. After torturing the guy for information, Leila calls him useless and cold-bloodedly kills him. She looks over the mess and goes, oopsie, Delphi, I made another mess. Come clean it up. Leila's then lamenting her birthday celebration because she's like, some of these people here want to kill me and I don't know who, so the celebration feels kind of bitter. She goes to see Cosima for no obvious reason and finds that Cosima's banging hottie guard Asher. Asher runs out of the room and Leila's like, why did you even summon me? And Cosima responds, oh, I don't even remember summoning you. Oopsies. Because clearly the only purpose in this moment was to make Leila see Cosima banging the hottie guy to justify more hatred for her. There was no plot reason for any of this. But also there's nothing you can do to convince me to hate Cosima because all of this feels so contrived since Leila hated Cosima since they were children before she was obviously banging other men. And if Leila hated Cosima when they were children because child Cosima was banging men in the palace, I think you need to talk to all of the sex offenders that are going after children in your palace, Leila. Not the victim of the assaults. Leila exits and goes to see Delphi, who is getting laid this morning as well, but it's with one of the servant girls. Delphi asks Leila why she's there, and wasn't she supposed to be meeting with Cosima because apparently Delphi also knew that she was summoned by Cosima. Leila shares what happened with Asher and the two trash talk Cosima together. Then it goes into Leila saying how she can't just kill her father until she knows who his criminal network is, since his criminal network is so vast that her killing him would just expose her to her father's criminal network. Worse? I don't entirely get this reasoning, but whatever. Cosima also shares that there will be 3 assassins entering the tournament to kill her, along with, her 17 bachelors. A page comes in to take Leila's preferences for what she's looking for in a man for the tournament selection. Once he leaves, Delphi tries to boost Leila's spirit, saying that maybe she'll still find love in the tournament, even if there are a couple of people trying to kill her. Leila's then taken off and pampered by servants who talk about how in her request for the perfect husband, she asked for a giant cock. Because the Savior series is obsessed with cocks, in case you didn't know. Though it doesn't like putting out, if you know what I mean. Leila's then put into an event gown and it's showtime. Gift-giving happens, and in private with Delphi, some random discussions happen to describe Leila's powers to the reader. Later, Leila finds bodyguard Asher is now her personal bodyguard, given to her as a birthday present from her father. Not pleased with this, Leila says she's going to bed so that she can sneak away. Once she's delivered to her room, she teleports to another senator's room. His name is Simon, but you can guess what's coming next. If you said murder, you were correct. Next day, Leila visits Delphi to tell her that she's got an idea. Get someone to pretend to be the Savior during the tournament, because since Leila's never left the palace, no one in town knows what she looks like. Delphi asks how this will work when Leila looks so much like her father, and Cosima doesn't. And I've also got that question. But first, Leila's answer is simple. Boys are so stupid that they won't notice she looks more like her father than Cosima. Since Cosima is hot, they'll focus on that instead. Then Delphi asks how that'll stop Brontes from noticing that Leila is missing, and Leila's like, who cares that Brontes has been planning this assassination for like 20 years, and this tournament is tradition and kind of a big deal. He's not going to pay attention to any of what's going on whatsoever. He's probably not even going to go to most of the events, so I can sneak somebody else in to be me, because he won't be looking for me at all in this assassination attempt. We're good. And it basically works out like that, actually. Delphi says the whole plan checks out, and she'll also spy alongside Leila to try to get information. A meeting's later called by Brontes, and since two of the senators are now missing, their responsibilities must be shifted around. Leila's sassy with her father in a way that should have straight up given away what she has been up to, but they don't have that conversation yet. Leila then tries to cancel the tournament again, and Brontes says no and, shut the fuck up, bitch. And he wins this round. Again. One of the responsibilities that must be given out is the role of proctor during the tournament. It's given to Leila's agent, Romulus. The other is pay given to the competitors' families. Then the meeting discusses Leila's expected entrance at the ceremony, which she refuses. She gets into a fight with her dad that ultimately ends with her saying, I know the laws better than you do, and I do what I want. I'm not going. And there are no consequences to this. I guess it really doesn't matter that Brontes is king and in control of everything theoretically anyways. Like, if you just see how Leila acts, she still has all of the power and she gets no punishment. So why does any of this matter? I don't know. She pretty much could have just said, no Saviors tournament, I'm gonna go and out myself to the universe and say that I am the Savior and I don't want to do this anymore, and the kingdom would be hers. Literally, all she has to do is step out of the palace and expose herself to the townspeople as the Savior, and they will all bend their knees to praise her and make her the queen. But instead, there's a throwdown between Brontes and Leila in private, where he calls her a stupid little shit and says in his edgiest voice that he named her Darkness because you being brought home was the darkest day of my life. Ugh. All I could do at this moment was laugh at just how hard this is trying to make Brontes a bad guy. It's so bad. And he's so emo that he's gonna start a band soon. Crawling in my skin, these wounds they will not heal. Also, Brontes has to get the last word in, so he says, and to think, the dudes coming for the tournament want to marry you? Ha! Ha! I laugh in your stupid shit little face. None of them like you. How do you like them apples, you dumb bitch? Leila runs away crying, her feelings hurt, and then she runs into Cosima. It's time to strike the switcheroo dealio. Pew pew. The tournament begins, and Leila's studying the profiles of the competitors to try to spot the assassins. She notices that there are only 17 scrolls available out of 20. How kind of her father to take out scrolls belonging to the assassins. You wouldn't want them to blend in at all. Leila's studies are interrupted by event guy Wimbledon, who tells Leila about the first day of the tournament. After the update, Leila's pissed to find out that 3 men have probably been murdered during the games, so she's gonna go down and take a look at everyone for herself. Leila's gonna go pretend to be a healer, and she's taking Pippa with her to bring the competitors food. When she first lays eyes on the boys, she is Thirsty is an understatement for what is going on in Leila's head. While talking to people, Leila spots the giant and Kaleo. She's informed that her father, in one of his acts of brilliant covert assassination planning, has blessed Kaleo at the ceremony. She assumes correctly that Kaleo is probably one of her father's assassins. I see that subtlety is not a gift that runs through this family. Helping some of the other boys, she hears them trash-talking the Savior openly, saying that a woman's place is on her back serving men. Leila flees after the boys make further lewd statements about women and her specifically. Eventually, she runs into Toby, though, and she thinks that Toby is one of her assassins and that he's responsible for the deaths that happened during the tournament already. Toby is outraged at the deaths and asks if there will be punishment for the people that killed his competitors. When he hears that there won't be, he snarls basically, right, because the Savior doesn't care. Leila jumps in to say, the Savior can't do anything. She is just a powerless victim like you. Everything in this tournament is determined by the Sovereign. But I'm over here going, then why did they cast votes to allow Leila in and make decisions on what's going on at the tournament, and instead of voting, she abstained? How come she actually gets to choose what a couple tournament rounds are, and how come she also gets to choose to release somebody? So she's not as powerless as she pretends to be, and it just ends up feeling like deflecting her culpability and responsibility in the deaths of the people in this situation. At first meeting, Leila leaves the maze assuming the assassins' identities correctly and doesn't help any of them. So immediately identified. There is no mystery here. Next, Leila's talking to Delphi about how she's going to kill the assassins. And Delphi is like, bro, you are too small to do that yourself, even with your unlimited powers. Then she switches up to putting your death thing aside. Did any of the boys downstairs catch your attention? Or any of them hotties? But Leila won't answer. She just goes, my life's in danger. I can't think about love. Excuse me. I don't have that luxury. Delphi, unlike you. Leila's called to another meeting with the senators to reallocate the responsibilities of the missing men. Why? I'm not sure. Her inclusion makes no sense from Brontes' points of view and from the POV that she has no power. They vote for the new Vault Keeper. Surprise, it's not Leila, despite her wanting to be the Vault Keeper. After the meeting, Leila goes into the dungeon beneath the senator's meeting room to see a man named Talos. Apparently this guy is from a previous tournament that Brontes won. Why he is kept in the basement instead of being killed, I'm not entirely sure. Convenience, mostly, probably. The guy in the dungeon somehow feeds Leila information even though he's supposedly stuck there. Yet, Leila could have let him out of the dungeon forever ago with her teleportation abilities, right? Talos tells Leila all of this information about the 3 assassins in the tournament, and then he's going to be forced to participate in one of the competitions in one way or another. This is followed by a scene of Leila asking, please tell me more about my mother again, because it seems Talos and Leila's mother were close. Leila leaves the basement and returns to the boys just as the next competition round is over. She thinks Toby is dead, but he comes in at the last minute with someone hanging around his shoulders. Obviously, this is Flynn, and he survives. Leila wants to talk to Toby after healing Flynn, but he's already gone to bed, so she leaves. Delphi and Leila are then together as Delphi prepares to bathe the boys for their first impression competition coming up. Leila tells Delphi to give Toby extra attention so that he's got the advantage, and Delphi is like, ooh, you like somebody, don't you? Tell me who you like, bitch. And then Leila and Cosima are both prepared to show up, with Cosima trading jewelry and preparing to stand in as the decoy savior. They don't even know if this is going to work, but obviously it does because Cosima is so beautiful and men are so stupid, so they can't think of anything other than the sheer beauty in front of their faces. Now, Cosima plays the role very well, answering the questions she's given in ways that Leila hadn't expected, but that are entirely accurate because over all these years, Cosima really has been paying attention to Leila, and Leila's pretty much been her entire life in this palace. She even includes quoting Leila directly, and Leila's over there getting mad and jealous of the attention and adoration that Cosima's getting that she doesn't deserve. Leila is the one, let's not forget that Leila is the one that thrust Cosima into this position in the first place. But sure, Leila, get pissed off. This is so confusing, specifically because Leila complains that Cosima's only getting attention because people think that she's the savior. So she doesn't deserve it. But Leila, the only reason that you would have gotten attention previously is because you are the savior. So would that mean that you didn't deserve it either? Or is it because she's faking it? So you're like, well, she doesn't deserve it, but I do deserve the attention because the world revolves around me. 2, Leila should have been happy that people were buying the act as much as they were, because she asked Cosima to do this for her. So what? She asked Cosima to cover for her and she wanted her to fail? Apparently, because Leila is so petty and egotistical that she can't actually stand the sight of someone else getting attention, even if the only reason that Cosima is getting attention right now is as a favor to Leila. Anyway, during the first impressions challenge, everyone's allowed to ask the savior one question. When it's time to decide the winner, Leila says that it should be Toby since he's the only one that asked a meaningful question. Cosima disagrees on who the winner should be because she'd rather spend time with someone else. Leila fights Cosima on this until Cosima is like, I thought that I was the savior, so I'd get to choose the winner. And Leila forfeits choosing the winner, so Cosima gets her way. Now, this part also confuses me because Leila's showing preferences to Toby early on, and she knows that the winner gets to spend extra time with the savior. So why is Leila fighting for Toby to get to spend more time with Cosima? The motive behind this is never really developed, and it could have been made to keep him out of the danger of the next challenge, since obviously often the winner of the previous challenge gets to go and spend time with the savior while all the other boys suffer. But this isn't really used. Instead, it feels arbitrary that Leila is saying make Toby win just so she can argue with Cosima, and then later she actually gets mad at Toby for winning because he ends up spending time with Cosima. There should be motive and reasoning for Leila's battles shown in every action and choice and dialogue. Her changing desire and relationships should show in her words, but instead there is no distinct difference now in wanting Toby to win and when she doesn't want him to win later, because obviously she's already fond of him at this point in the story. After Cosima is gone, Leila snaps at Romulus for information he doesn't have about her assassinations. About her assassination. She threatens him that if he doesn't find something, she's going to kill him next. Now, Leila and Delphi complain about how all of the competitors are inept, and 2 of them are probably gay. They completely overlooked that. Delphi handpicked all of the guys in this group of male specimens. So maybe it's not the men of the realm that suck, but maybe Delphi is not great at picking battlers, or she has her own romantic reason for trying to screw Leila's chances at finding happiness. Actually, no. Clearly, in this universe, women can't make any mistakes, and it's men that are the problem. Delphi is like, well, maybe you don't need to see the boys anymore now since you got all the information you need, right? And Leila's like, but I have to go. Like, I need to learn so many things about them. So many things about the boys, and none of them are like what Toby's body feels like or how his eyes feel staring into my soul or anything, just so you know. It's nothing like that. Leila then receives a surprise gift, a ring from someone we don't know yet is named Carr. Apparently this is a message from Romulus saying to go after Carr for more information. Delphi tells Leila to be careful because that guy can fight, but something tells me that he won't be a problem for Leila, and this will be a recurring theme we'll find. Now, this scene with Carr really exemplifies why Leila would have been better if accepted as a villain, and maybe she is. Because I don't know anything about the author of this book or her feelings towards Leila's morality or how she feels about Leila's actions, because I don't really get that involved in authors' lives, and I try to judge a book based on its individual merits. But then when you have a character like Leila, I try to get the understanding of what the author believed they were doing versus what it is I absorbed so that I can compare and contrast. So if you guys know how Leila is supposed to be recognized based on what the author thinks of Leila, I would love to know that in the comments. Because based on this book alone, she's evil. She is so evil. So Leila chases Carr down, and when he asks for mercy, begs for mercy, the scene plays out as following. What kind of creature are you? I'm your queen. You are damned. My blood will never wash clean of your hands. His fists trembled. You are forever marked. You're a murderer. She drove her sword through his gut. This feels like a very villainous scene to me. And it would have been so good if she was taking advantage of Pippa this whole time to ascend to power. But I'll drop more on that a little bit later. As expected, Leila kills Carr without problem. She then returns to the library where she sees Pippa reading the scrolls about the gladiators. This is just an opportunity to mention their dicks again, honestly. And then Leila's told that the poisoning challenge has been completed and the artist is dying. Leila runs to heal Toby, and while there, she talks to Kalelo, who is just trying so hard to be gross. But I couldn't take him seriously. Seriously, one of his monologues in this scene is,
"Well, lamb, don't you worry your little head. When the tournament ends and I win Cosima, know that I won't leave you behind. Her tits are enough to leave a man's heart for days, but I'd wager that your eyes are the most stunning I'd ever seen. Say, I've got a proposition for you. Come our wedding night, I'll fuck the Savior's tits, as any good man would. Then, once she's sound asleep, I'll slip into your chambers, hold you down nice and tight, then slide deep into your cunt. And while I fuck you hard and for as long as I please, know that I will stare longingly into those beautiful eyes of yours. Doesn't that sound romantic, healer girl?"
Then Toby wakes up. So Toby and Leila hang out and flirt and spend the night together, basically. Leila returns to Delphi to talk about her new plans going forward. Delphi's now shrugging off Cosima's well-being and the fact that she could be assassinated because apparently Brontes might not have even given the people he hired a description of his own daughter. Suddenly Leila cares about Cosima, saying that they should be concerned, that maybe she will get murdered. At this point, I'm pretty much assuming it's canon that the assassins knew that Leila was the savior the whole time and Cosima wasn't, but they'd made a deal on when to assassinate her and everything, so why not get free poon and a couple more kills for the streak count like they're on vacation before they finish the job as expected. There's no need to rush on a client that isn't going to pay you more for not finishing sooner, right? So Leila's then prepared and pampered by her maidens so that they can ask about her interest in the boys and give another excuse to talk about, you guessed it, cocks. Leila takes Pippa down to see the boys again, just as they're considering the type of gifts to give Cosima, and she gets harassed. However, none of the guys apparently target or harass Pippa, despite her being the same age and also much more naive and easy to trick than Leila, that she's not even going to fight back. How considerate that this entire group of jackasses that will also sexually assault or harass Leila draw the line at, doing anything to Pippa. They may all be evil, but at least they still have a conscience, right? Leila then encourages Toby to draw again and then pieces out. While hanging out with the girls, Cosima shares that she's giving the winners of the competition something extra for their trouble. It's sex. She's giving them sex. Leila then is hanging out with Dungeon Man Talos again, talking about the ruse, and he's like, "The assassins didn't mention to your dad that they were with some big-boobed redhead?" Apparently not, and it's probably proving my previous theory that they knew who Leila was all along. The Dungeon Man then tells Leila the assassins cheated in the torture challenge and goes on more about Leila's mother. Leila returns to the surface late for the gift challenge, and everyone is like, "What the frick, where were you?" It doesn't really matter because nothing happens, there were no consequences to this, it was just kind of extra dialogue that happened. Leila's obviously super excited to see Toby's gift. She's even smiling really wide, and I can't help but wonder if it's because she's thinking of how this one moment will still be about her when all of the other moments have been about Cosima, and maybe it'll make her jealous that not everybody is obsessed with Cosima this one time. I'm pretty sure that Leila would have actually rubbed it in Cosima's face if the paintings had been presented. Toby obviously fails to present anything, and we're hit with a major plot problem. So, in the torture challenge, the assassins cheated to win. But then, how is it that one of the assassins can be voted off of the island when they were previously cheated to allow to succeed? How is Brontes not monitoring the situation in the tournament to make sure that things go the way he wants them to go, but somehow his people are still cheating, but also they're unable to cheat at times when it matters? Leila visits Toby later to see the art that he drew, and she's impressed since she's never had anyone draw anything like this for her before. From here, we montage a night of Leila training Toby on how to fight with the help of Flynn. The same scene as you know. Then there's a meeting with Leila's father where for some reason he decides that he's not going to go watch the match of his hired assassin killing someone. you'd think that at least for this spectacle of a man he hired partaking in massive blood sport, that Brontes would be there, but no. Then, Leila's prepping Cosima for her appearance at the tournament, and apparently despite how dangerous it is for Leila, all of the guards are dismissed everywhere, so no one will see Cosima is the savior in the watch box. Also, side note, seriously, dude, you gotta take this moment to go, Teehee and Flynn is a terrible lover. Like, really, again. Author, why do you hate this character so much? Why do you hate so many of your characters as much as you do? It's not even the characters that hate this person. It comes off as the author hating their own character and taking pointless, meaningless jabs to humiliate them at every turn because she doesn't like them. It's bullying your own character. I don't know about anybody else, and feel free to let me know in the comments down below, but whenever I get the feeling that an author hates their own character, I can't help but like them because I feel bad for them. They're never given a chance to stand on their own or to be their own people because the author always just comes off as mean. And Flynn is just an example of this. I don't care what this book says about Flynn. It's doing him dirty because of the bias of the author, and that doesn't influence me in any way that the author might think that it does. So now Leila goes down to encourage and bless Toby. I'm also confused as to why Leila's always pissed off that Cosima is playing the role of savior so well when she's literally asked her to do it. She ad-libs and keeps up the front all of the time, and no one notices despite obvious physical reasons showing why you should notice. But it pisses Leila off that nobody's catching Cosima in a lie. Leila also gets aroused watching Toby taunt and kill the giant because she's twisted. Leila, you can't pretend that you hate blood sports after this chapter. I'm sorry, but you were obviously turned on by watching your boyfriend kill somebody. After the battle, Leila takes Wimbledon to a back room where she's going to execute him ruthlessly because he's not helpful anymore. So she's going to take out the trash. Wimbledon tells Leila that Brontes is working with outsiders to destroy the lineage of the savior. Wimbledon promises to get more information for Leila if she doesn't kill him, and in true villain fashion, Leila threatens him brutally for his allegiance. Leila then goes to meet Toby, and the boys are celebrating his victory. Toby promises to keep the secret that Leila is helping him survive, though I don't think it's much of a secret when everyone knows he's received the Savior's blessings. This is the point where in the Savior's Champion I'd initially thought that Toby had discovered that Leila was the Savior. Because of this conversation being as suspect as it is, that it didn't make sense to drag out his not knowing. Leila and Toby talk about how they don't care that the giant is dead. He deserved it anyway. Normal hero stuff, you know? And then there's idle bonding over conversation, murder, and the desire to suck face. A favorite combination to us all, am I right? Then Leila hangs out with all of the drunk boys, and surprisingly, no one makes any passes at Leila as she just daintily holds Toby's hand. Leila then has a dream about how sexy Toby is. So sexy, in fact, that she flings the blankets off of her and says, "Take me!" before she wakes up. She's about to diddle herself when she's interrupted by servants saying that she's needed, and Asher saying that she's acting sus, disappearing all of the time. Leila, being how she is, obviously draws a weapon to go after Asher. She's bloodthirsty and compelled to draw blood at every minor inconvenience or challenge, but she agrees to let Asher go if he doesn't talk about her coming and going from her bedroom. You know, she doesn't bother using her girlish charms on this guy or her savior authority. Everything always comes down to the knife and blood and immediate threat. Leila's then at a Senate meeting, and her father openly talks about the assassinated senators, and it doesn't seem suspicious at all that it might be Leila's doing. Somehow, this came off as a massive oversight, all things considered. Then, because Brontes is so disassociated with his own death tournament, this is when he is finally informed of the death of his hired assassin, the Giant. It's almost 24 hours after the round, and he's only now being informed? What the frick has he been doing since then? Cranking it? You know, knowing this book, that's probably where he was at. Once again, Brontes basically assaults Leila, cutting her with a knife and slamming her against things until Leila teleports away, and she's like, oh shoot, I'm so scared of him. Though I'm not sure why she's scared of him. She has a lot of abilities, and could just step in front of the sun and convert the majority of their kingdom against Brontes by glowing. Also, I was wondering why he'd even hire assassins when he can obviously get intimate and destroy her personally. I mean, might as well do it and just lie about what happened, because who's there to tell? He's apparently got a bunch of loyalists behind him in the palace, so anyway. After that absolute downer of a moment, it's now time for ad-lib poetry by a bunch of 20-year-olds. It's as painful as you would imagine. Now, with this, I thought we'd actually get to see Cosima and Leila deliberate. And Leila would tell Cosima not to pick Toby, and we'd see some reasoning or mindset behind the shift in her since she was so badly wanting Toby to win previously. But we don't actually get that conversation, and Leila is just heartbroken that Toby wins. Despite the fact that he is clearly obsessed with her, she's overwhelmingly upset at the idea that he'll spend time with another female. Leila moves on quickly to stalk Wimbledon to his room and wake him up with a slap in the face because she's brutal like that. She threatens to kill him. He forfeits information on the next target that Leila should go for, and this is enough to spare his life. For now. Hunting down the new mark with Delphi, Leila rages about how much she doesn't trust Cosima because she is too good at pretending to be the savior. Leila is also concerned that Cosima's using the fake position she asked her to fill against her. I'm not entirely sure this works because everyone in the palace knows Cosima is not the real savior. So what's the real threat? And how did Leila not consider this ahead of time since she's always hated Cosima? She's always mistreated Cosima. So there's always been the possibility that Cosima would misuse the position when asked to do it. Leila chases down a man named Fanes. That may be incorrect pronunciation, but that's what we're going with, who taunts her before Leila stabs him. He also informs her that Brontes knows she's killing other senators. The guy only survives because he calls guards over, and everyone thinks Leila is nuts, which, fair and true, but she still screams, "That guy is trying to kill me," while dripping in the blood of, like, 5 other senators. Okay, Leila, it's time for the dungeon. She's dragged away, but teleports out of the guard's clutches and proceeds to murder all of them. Irony. Fanes bests Leila when she comes after him again, but he's like, "Ah ha ha ha, I won't kill you now, though, because despite how we've set up an assassination for you, we're not allowed to kill you anytime before then. It just ain't right." Because somehow that makes sense. Sitting on top of her, he continues, "God, I wish I could kill you right now. It would be so good, and you would be so bloody. Oh, I would probably fuck your corpse too." And then he gets stabbed. Leila leaves and runs into Toby. She's big mad at Toby for having spent time with Cosima because he won the competition, and she assumes that he banged her first chance he got. So she tells him to fuck off. Later, when she visits the boys in the labyrinth, she's mad at Toby for not rooting over her, ignoring him, and is just over there playing cards with the guys. Like, what the frick? He's supposed to be upset that she's not talking to him. Leila then gets harassed by some of the other competitors as they ask to be healed. This results in one of them being shoved into an endless pit that exists for some reason. Leila looks at the other boys and is like, "Murder? So what? It's fine. It's literally fine. I've done it so many times before. It doesn't freaking matter." Kind of surprising that this is taken so well, since earlier Toby asked if Kaleo would be punished for murdering people, and when Toby said that the savior doesn't care about murder among the combatants, Leila got mad, saying the savior had no power. But oh, how the times have changed. Leila then runs into Brontes, who says that he gets why Leila's into Toby. They're both arrogant. Also, there was a fire in Fanes, and Fanes is dead. As per usual, Leila shrugs it off. She then runs into Delphi and tells Delphi that Toby is a sad boy since she won't talk to him, and Leila responds, "Oh, shut the fuck up, Delphi. I don't care. I don't care about that stupid boy anymore." Delphi, being the more delicate one with words, says, "Leila, you're kind of an out-of-control, emotionless bitch. Care about your puppy dog boy a little, huh?" Now it's time for another competition. This one is the matching game. Leila pays no attention the whole time because she's bored and mad and doesn't care. Toby obviously loses. In another room, Leila and Delphi talk about friends her dad might have working against her. Then Delphi is trying to get Leila to go and see Toby. Leila's like, "No, I freaking hate that guy, okay?" But eventually she succeeds, and Leila goes to spend time with her little puppy boy in the dungeon. Leila's bitchiness and animosity towards Cosima comes out in full force here. and Leila delights in Toby's complete rejection of Cosima. Leila's then hanging out with her sisters when Cosima says she thinks Toby is gay since he didn't want to bang her. Delphi makes the correction, actually it's because Puppy Boy is interested in Leila. Cosima gets passive mad about this for some reason. In another meeting with the senators, some big guy is given keys from someone Leila's killed, and Leila's daydreaming about smooching Toby's face. Then in private, she snaps at Romulus because he doesn't have more information and he owes her if he doesn't want to die. New challenge time, and it is the water challenge. I will say that I misread this scene in the Savior's Champion because for some reason I thought that was Toby who got hurt, not Raphael. So, my bad on that. But Toby does sort of disappear in this scene following the water portion. After Raphael's healed, Leila goes to bitch slap Cosima for defying her back during the game, and then she breaks up a sexual encounter Delphi is having because Leila needs the attention right freaking now, all freaking time. If this doesn't tell you what kind of relationship all of these girls have with Leila their entire lives, I don't know what else will. Leila returns to Raphael to check on his wounds, and also, well, he now knows that Leila is the savior, but he's willing to keep her secret if she will release him come the first competitor's release. But he promises to keep her secret if Leila promises to release him with the savior's choice. Leila agrees. Toby then comes into the tent and the two spend time together. While having their moment, they're interrupted by Enzo, the dog, and all Leila can think is her typical problem-solving thoughts, which are kill, 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 kill. But Toby fortunately distracts her with some kissing. Skip to Leila sitting in another meeting where a vote is being taken. At this meeting, Brontes is now learning about how the audience favors Toby. Brontes informs Leila that they're approaching the release of the first competitor, and Leila is allowed to pick one. However, she's not allowed to release anyone that the Sovereign has blessed. This just makes everything else so sketchy the rest of the way through the book because she's fine sacrificing Toby to her desires and using him for her purposes, and pretends the whole time that she's powerless of any authority whatsoever, and lies to his face multiple times and never apologizes to him. And as you will see later, when he calls her out on lying to him, she blames him for it and makes him apologize for being hurt. Absolute savior material up here. After the meeting, Romulus approaches Leila to apologize for how he dismissed her during the water challenge. Leila's big mad and threatens him in a not-so-subtle way by saying, and I quote,
"Do you remember Anchor, the former page of the Sovereign? He was so loyal to Brontes, saw him as a father. I thought that strange given how Brontes treats his kin. I tried to be reasonable, coax the details from him gently, a stab here and there, but he refused. So I cut off his toes one by one, then his fingers, until finally he gave me what I required. I don't pride myself on these tactics, but steps must be taken to handle those who disobey."
Then she says she is the only reason that Romulus is still alive, and he better not forget it. Leila meets with Delphi and informs her that the dog saw her sucking face with Toby, and he could report them, which would get Toby killed for blasphemy reasons. Delphi, being the reasonable one here, says, sure, that could happen, but not really, because you're not actually committing treason here, since you are actually the savior. But Leila, being selfish, says, but if it happens though, the whole ruse is up, so either Toby gets killed for fake blasphemy, or I have to give up that I'm lying to find my assassins, even though I already know who all of my assassins are. Leila's then informed that competitors will be moving to the palace soon, and Leila's discovered one of her servants speaks and reads a foreign language that can assist in reading documents that she got off one of the dead senators. This tells Leila that a foreign country is also working with her father in the assassination attempt, and she now believes that the dog is a spy working against her. Leila sneaks out of the room to see Enzo. She's stopped by a hot guard boy, Asher, who says that he won't let her run around at night because of sexism. But Leila throws a fit saying, boys can sleep with whoever they want, whenever they want, so I can too. Screw you. Then she runs off. I'm not sure why she didn't just shadow walk or teleport out of her room here, since that's what she's been doing, but whatever. She gets to the labyrinth at the same time Toby is pinning someone down against the floor to slash their throat. The fighter is begging for mercy, to which Leila's got none and does nothing but drop a knife to hurry up that business. Leila's later talking to Delphi about who to release, and she's going to choose the dog because she fears him rather than sticking to the promise that she made Raphael. Eventually, that is actually what happens. Skip forward, and Leila is woken up in the middle of the night to her father having guards pin her down so that he can extract blood from her for some traditional ritual. If this is normal, I feel like it could have been done in a more reasonable way. Leila then runs to Delphi and her sisters to wake them all up to review records of the tournaments past to figure out how best to help Toby survive what's coming next. Like, this isn't something that Leila should have done before the tournament even started, in preparations, knowing what was coming, at least for her own survival purposes, right? It's whatever. Delphi is then annoyed at being woken up and tells Leila that there are other boys and she shouldn't be concerned with Toby anymore because she can pick somebody else to date. And this is kind of awkward because up to this point, Delphi had been really supportive of Leila's choice of Toby, and all of a sudden, she's not. Anyway, blood is apparently taken to throw at the statues in the garden to bring them to life. With this being tradition, I'm not entirely sure how Leila didn't know that, because this wouldn't be the first time that those statues would have been used in this way. Leila thanks Pippa and Delphi for helping her look through the scrolls, but says nothing to Cosima, despite assisting the whole time as well. Leila delivers the news of the statues to Toby, and then it's time for the competitors to go through the garden to the palace. Minimal fatalities follow. Leila's thinking about how the welcoming party is the next thing to come, and now the assassins are in her home. She dresses for the party and makes herself as bland as possible so she doesn't stand out as savior. Then, it's party time. Leila's thirsty for Toby, and immediately gets flirty. She's also pissy that the room's decorated with roses, since her favorite flower is lilies, but everyone knew that Cosima, the stand-in, said roses, so that's what they decorated with here. Probably by the orders of Leila, since they're doing Leila's bidding. Leila feels like the type of girl to say, please don't make everything about me, and then when they honor her request, she gets mad because nobody is paying attention to her. That's what this all feels like. Leila dances with Raphael first, and he's unhappy since she didn't keep her promise in letting him go. She's angry at him for being upset with her and threatens him. He has no choice but to cede to her, hoping that she doesn't lie the next time she says he will be released. At this point, Raphael says, I thought we were friends, and Leila snorts, saying, I thought you were supposed to be smart. Leila, that was rude and uncalled for. Leila then dances with Toby. Reading this scene again made me wonder why the assassins never cut in to dance with Leila, nor did they attempt to make an assassination on her while she was unarmed. As she stated herself, she didn't have her dagger. It would have been a perfect opportunity to slip off, suck her face, and try to stab her. After the dancing ends, Romulus approaches Leila to give her a new mark target. Leila's going about her business when hottie guard Asher approaches to apologize for not helping her when her dad pinned her to her bed and took her blood. Leila snaps at him for being a failure and walks off to find her new mark, Castor. She stalks the man all day, thinking she's being subtle. But Castor? Oh no. Oh no! This man knew. This man knew that Leila was watching him. So he goes to a private room, and knowing that Leila is with him, he confronts her. He says,
Baby, I understand where you're coming from. I know why you watch me from afar, because I feel it too.
No joke, he thinks that she is in love with him, but him being 33 and her being 20, Leila is like, you're a gross old man. They fight, he loses because of course he does, and Leila acts like Castor was somehow the bad guy for being sexually interested in her when she had stalked him all day. What else was he supposed to think? Leila also goes through the guy's pockets to find her own jewelry there. She doesn't know why he has her jewelry, but is like, huh. Back with Delphi, Leila talks over all of this new information. It is now time for the competitors to be introduced to the royals visiting from other lands. Leila's a big mad at Delphi for being like, ya puppy boy is probably getting an eye full of titties right now. But it's okay, he probably still only wants to see your titties, as amazing as it is to believe that. Leila agrees with Delphi that it is time to tell Toby that she's the savior, but when she visits with him, she chickens out. She then visits Dungeon Man Talos, asking if she should tell loved ones the truth, even if they don't like it. And the guy is so non-committal, he's like, you should tell the truth, because lying breaks up relationships, but also you gotta protect yourself, so that's more important, so continue to lie if it's better for you. I gotta take a moment to say that the narration here reads, deception was all Leila knew of men, but would Tobias be the outsider? If this was true, then why does she trust Talos? Why does this book hate men so much is my question. I get that maybe the author is dealing with personal or emotional issues through this book, but this level of man hatred in the Savior's sister is not really fun to read. It makes Leila less and less sympathetic in my opinion. But obviously, that's a personal taste issue. Some people might really click with the man hatred in this, but it's so obnoxious, it's so turned up, and there's no point to it. It just reads personal to me. Dungeon Man Talos also tells Leila that she's not responsible for killing people. It's her connection to her father that's actually killing people. Her dad's legacy is actually the murderer, and it's not Leila with all the blood on her hands. So there's no autonomy for women in this story, even if they're the most powerful. Even if they're so powerful, they're referred to as the Savior. They're still not responsible for their own actions. Gotcha. Before Leila can ask anything about her mother, they're interrupted by a senator's arrival, so Leila teleports out of the dungeon. Back on the normal side of things, Leila is confronted by the Brave, demanding his relief from the competition because he is not prepared to die to marry her. After he stepped out, Raphael approaches to make sure that he's still going to be released in the upcoming Sovereign's Choice. Leila's pissed off and says, just trust me, okay? Even though he has every right to not trust her at this point, since she didn't keep her word the last time. He offers to help Leila work through whatever it is she's working on, and she tells him no and mocks him because she doesn't trust him. In his parting words, he warns that Drake and Kaleo were just trying to kill Toby. Now, Leila is at a meeting, thinking about how Brontes is targeting Toby. Brontes is wearing a crown, and Leila is like, what the frick is he doing wearing that? It's not like he's the king or anything, so... The meeting that they're having is about the competitor who wishes to quit. Obviously, the option is to kill him and cancel the day's festivities. I don't know why they didn't just make a bigger show of this like they did with the Giant and Toby. Like, setting the dude up to be gangbanged by all of the other competitors would have been an event to behold. Instead, it's just a trial, and Leila is pissed off at hearing crowds' bloodlust for the quitter. The Brave is humiliated and executed promptly. Leila then gives Wimbledon a visit, one last time to kill him because why not? He gets Leila to calm down by telling her someone in the palace is against her. He doesn't know who it is, of course, but Brontes is communicating with them through secret packages, and he swears that he can figure out who it is. Leila gives Wimbledon more time to not be dead. She then teleports to the senator's chambers and demands the guy do some info digging from Brontes for her. Then she teleports away. Delphi's disappointed that Leila didn't kill Wimbledon, and Leila's like, look, I hate it too, but he's our only lead. The two theorize about who in the palace is going to betray Leila, and Delphi suggests that while they wait for more info from Wemby, why not satiate the bloodlust by killing the new senators Leila's dad just promoted? One of them is a stupid young ex-page. Her dad is most definitely banging. I dare you to prove it to me that he is not banging the kid. Brontes legit just made this kid part of his senate. It was definitely to keep him close for fun. Leila says that she's going to tell Toby that she's the Savior, and now Delphi is like, bruh, you still haven't told him yet? Leila says it's Toby's fault because he was shit-talking the Savior, and it made her panic that he'd hate her when he found out who she was. Either she knows she's a bad person and she's afraid of Toby judging her for it, or she's insane because she's not able to separate herself from him not being fond of Cosima, when she too has demonized Cosima with him. However, she's got a meeting and she can't go and see Toby right now. She does later summon Toby to meet with her though, and Leila takes him to a private garden where two of them just hang out, and she's about to tell him that she is the Savior, but he says he's glad he chose her, a nobody, over the power of the Savior, and he's glad, which upsets Leila because she's neurotic and can't understand that he's speaking to her as a person and not craving her deity power. Instead of telling Toby that she's the Savior, she tells him that she's been killing her dad's senators, and Toby's response is, that's fine. I don't need your reasons. Shortly after that, he also goes, but why are you doing it? Toby then says killing the senators is dangerous, and Leila tells him to shut up. He complies. Then the two go into what's basically a game of let's share blackmail material with each other, where Toby is talking about pissing in a wash bin of some guy that hurt his sister's feelings, and Leila says she slapped Cosima. Toby's response is, you know what? I am so aroused by that. So they flirt and giggle, and Leila is so ready for sex, but the thought of Toby saying that he chose her over the savior makes her panic, and she stops things before they get too heated. The two of them then stick to flirting until they pass out. Leila then dreams she's having porno-style sex, but the dream ends with Toby learning that she is the savior, being disgusted, and going to kill her under Brontes' orders. Upon waking up, Leila teleports the two of them into Toby's bed. Orion spots her doing this and promises to keep Leila's secret. Considering she can gift her powers to other people, I don't understand why she doesn't just go, hey, by the way, the savior gave me these powers. I'm not actually the savior. She could have lied more, is what I'm saying. Leila meets with Delphi, who tells her to go ride Toby's dick because she deserves it. The female servants now talk about Leila's sex life and if she even has a sex life with Toby, and to tell them when she does have sex with Toby because they want to know how it goes. They've seen his dick, and they want to know if he knows how to use it, you know? The servants' girls are told to leave while Leila and Delphi make a list of who the traitors could be. Cosima and Pippa run into the room telling Leila that Brontes knows about the switch and he's on his way. Despite Leila being a powerful murderer who can teleport on a whim, she's just like, oh, God, he's coming to hurt me. Toby enters the room before Leila can get slapped by Brontes. King of the Kingdom, with the murder plot on his own daughter, takes orders from the lowly artist, though, and flees from the room in his own castle because Toby won't shut up and go away when he's told. Toby asks Leila what's going on, and she refuses to tell him anything, saying, things are so much worse than you know, and so much more complicated than you can possibly understand. Leila believes that Wimbledon is going to betray her, so, in typical Leila fashion, she goes to murder him. She can't, though, because he's protected by her father's guards. She goes to find Romulus, but, he did. New meeting time. Everyone knows that Leila's been up to some Freaky Friday thing with switching positions with Cosima. She goes in aggressive and is surprised to find that the agenda is not only normal, but everyone is cool with continuing her charade. Brontes is then pressured to pick someone as his choice to send home, and Leila manipulates him into picking Raphael. Leila runs into Cosima and asks her how things went with her father when he confronted her about the switch. Cosima pretends that she doesn't know how Brontes acts, that he's kind of angry, that he's kind of powerful or whatever, making it very, very obvious that she's doing something with him. It's kind of really lazy, and it kind of would have been super easy to make Cosima lie better. Leila's determined now that she has to take Brontes down on her own. Leila gets dressed and meets with Toby before the next challenge. He's upset because Orion is dead. Leila tries to comfort him, but Toby is having a breakdown and blaming the savior for all of the circumstances that are killing his friends. Leila can't help but make it about her and says, please, please don't blame the savior for this, instead of just letting him mourn however it is he needs to mourn. During this meltdown, Toby includes that he risks losing Leila too because he still doesn't know that she's the savior, and he considers his own actions to be putting her in danger. They could both be executed from his point of view, but he only cares about her death. It's truly evil for her to let him believe this and to put him through this much stress and trauma for no reason at this point, especially as he currently blames himself for Orion's death. Leila still doesn't come clean through all of this, and instead just lets Toby melt into her arms. Leila is then cleaning off a wall in the gallery for Toby's art when Raphael approaches. She tells him that he will be released in a couple of days, so just chillax and yeah. Raphael wonders why the sovereign would want to kill anyone whom his daughter favors if this whole thing is for her to get married. Leila just gets pissed off and tells Raphael to go away. At a banquet, Leila takes Toby to the gallery and shows him around, and then shows him the blank wall that she is now gifting to him to put any of his art on if he creates more art for her. Then the two of them look over ancient and unique scrolls together. The next day, Leila and Delphi stalk Brontes, learning nothing new. Delphi's frustrated now and tells Leila to just kill off all of Brontes' allies and get it over with so they can move on with their lives. Leila discovers a scroll in the windowsill saying that plans have changed and it's time to meet. Leila hangs out to see if anybody goes for the scroll, as if her presence won't scare off anybody who is, involved in a plot to kill her. Surprise, nobody comes for the scroll, and the servants notice that she's sitting there, and are like, what are you doing? You look kind of crazy. While the boys are shown around the castle by Cosima, Drake finds his way to Leila and attacks her, proving that he knew Leila was the savior the whole time, probably, and was just getting some poon. The guy strangles Leila, making it so she can't teleport away, apparently, but it's fine. Toby arrives just in time to fight the guy and cuts his ear off. He's chased off before things can get any worse. Toby helps Leila clean up and tells her that she needs to tell someone what happened to her. Leila refuses and then cries, "I'm tired of feeling powerless," while she's still not powerless at all. She's got multiple abilities and has killed more dudes than anyone in this tournament so far, so I don't know what she's talking about. Toby comforts Leila and he falls asleep. Leila mutters, "I wish I could tell you the truth, but I'm afraid that you'll hate me when I do." At this point, just end the relationship. You can't sustain a meaningful relationship on lies, and Leila is obviously not that invested in this situation. The next day, Delphi tells Leila to go see Toby because he's in his room shirtless and lonely. Of course, things move into Steamtown fast, but before things go too far, Flynn comes in, so Leila takes her leave. Time for the next challenge, which is the Sovereign's dismissal, and Raphael is let go. Toby flips out at the Sovereign for keeping murderers around, and to be honest, everyone here is actually a murderer. Toby's hands aren't even innocent either, so... Toby's obviously not punished beyond some humiliation talk because Brontes has no teeth, despite what Leila says. Everyone's dismissed and the royals arrive. Leila only now learns that the next challenge is a 4-person battle royale between the competitors. Leila summons Toby to help him cheat again, but when he arrives he's depressed because he's pretty sure that he is going to die no matter what happens. Leila's just short of mocking him for panicking while telling him not to panic, but she won't tell him why. Toby's upset that he wasn't released by the Sovereign and says that he's surprised he wasn't just killed for talking back. It was apparently his attempt to spare Leila from getting caught in the crossfires of blasphemy, and again, Leila is like, he wouldn't do that. It's not in plan. I'm just like, what is the plan? Why would he not kill Toby because he's given this opportunity to do it right in front of everybody? He wants to get rid of Toby, right? He wants to also get rid of Leila, right? So why not take this opportunity now that he has it? I am so confused by the choices here. He doesn't like you. He doesn't want you. Has all of it within his powers to get rid of you right now, but he won't do it because it's not in the outline. His outline or the author's? Leila finally decides that it's time to tell Toby what's going on, but he says, "I don't care anymore. Y'all been lying to me, and I'm just a pawn in some game with the Sovereign." Instead of Leila saying, "I'm the savior," she uses a bunch of filler words until Toby calls her a mistake, and it upsets Leila, so she no longer is willing to talk to him and actually says, "Fuck off, Toby." Toby obeys with little resistance. Delphi comes in and asks what happened, and despite Leila having been the one that told Toby to get bent, she manipulates Delphi for sympathy by saying, "He left me." No, Leila. You told him to get lost after lying to him for a month and mocking him over his fear of death and guilt of getting you killed. You are not the victim here. Leila continues by saying, "What is it about me that makes me so hard to love?" I wonder, would you like to start with the lying, murder, constant victimization, or the bratty self-entitlement and how you use it to abuse everyone around that you come in contact with? Because we've been preparing a list this entire time, sweetheart. Leila goes on to check the window where she found the scroll note before. The servants tell Leila that there are rumors circulating that she's crazy, especially in pretending that she is not the savior. She says Leila should just take her natural place again, but Leila says no, it's complicated. The servant just says, "I guess it is," and walks away. Skip to Leila being with Dungeon Man Talos, asking him if her mother loved him. When he says no, Leila calls her mother a dumb bitch. Leila talks about how things would have been different if Talos was her father, and he says nothing, which pretty much confirms to me that Talos is in fact Leila's true father. Then Talos asks how Toby is doing, and Leila says, "I don't care about him anymore. I've fallen out of his favor," to which Talos replies, "Dumb bitch." About Toby, not about Leila, though it would be funny if that was about Leila. But why would anybody be reasonable in this book or disagree with anything Leila thinks unless they're a bad guy? That's pretty much a constant throughout this book. The moment between Talos and Leila is interrupted by Erebus, a senator, coming in. Erebus then runs. Leila pursues, thinking he's one of the senators I can't take down because he's a warrior. Like we haven't heard that one before. Leila catches up and is getting strangled by the man who still won't kill her anyway, even when he's got the upper hand because, reasons. But it's fine. Dungeon Man Talos appears, stabs the guy, and returns back to the dungeon. It turns out Erebus dropped the keys he needed to escape when he went running. But also, Talos doesn't want to live free until Leila is free. I'm actually confused as to why Leila didn't just teleport Talos out of the dungeon this whole time. Before going back to his place in the dungeon, Talos tells Leila to go and check on her money vault. She does and finds it empty. Day of the Battle Royale. It's going to rain. Leila's no longer being held by guards, despite the behaviors mentioned in previous chapters that said she was crazy, so she was going to be watched closely. Nobody is anywhere around her impeding on her movement, nor are the guards outside the senator's meeting room trying to stop her when she goes to enter. She flips out at them, asking if Brontes doesn't believe in the miracles of the Savior, and then tells them that they're all going to die when she's on. She hides in her room until it's time for the challenge to start. Despite Leila's worry, Toby not only survives, but goes so totally beast mode that Flynn and Kaleo back off entirely to watch Toby slaughter Drake. Later, everyone is sitting around a table celebrating the end of the battle. Toby is given some evening time with Cosima. Meanwhile, Cosima is basically fingering Toby underneath the table, causing Leila to both be pissed and hurt that Toby is not slighting the superior queen for sexually assaulting him at a public setting. Because you know what happens when peasants forsake royal superiors in public? In front of their father and guards and literally everyone? Yeah, it's probably not good. After seeing that, Leila's like, well, I shouldn't even bother to try to mend things because obviously Toby doesn't want me after he was sexually harassed by my sister in public. Leila then leaves the dinner and speaks with a foreign queen who tells Leila that she knows about the whole fake savior thing. Of course, since this queen is an ally, she also says, I like you more than your father, so I'll keep your secret. But also, why are you breaking Toby's heart? First, Leila tries to play it off like she doesn't know what the queen is talking about, but then she says, I'm not breaking his heart, he's breaking mine. Again, making herself the mega victim and manipulating everyone for sympathy. Leila is the only one who told Toby to fuck off after she'd been lying to him for a month in a life or death situation. Yet somehow the queen still tells Leila to save Toby from his rage. I'm just like, how is a raging bitch gonna save somebody from their righteous anger? So Leila runs into hot guard Asher, who takes this opportunity out of nowhere to kiss her and tell her to dump the stupid soldier boy for him. Considering Asher slept with Cosima like right off, and there was no development between these two, this just makes it feel like a moment to give the power back to Leila to say that I didn't choose you. It's not you who didn't choose me because reasons. I don't know. It was a meaningless gesture, story-wise. Meanwhile, she's obsessively thinking about Cosima's hand on Toby's thigh. Leila then stumbles into page boy turned senator, Hylas, who is about to jump out window and kill himself. I could have sworn that we were finally gonna get a moment of this book that wasn't the world revolving around Leila, and it would have been Hylas saying that he couldn't take being sexually assaulted by Brontes anymore, but no. He tells Leila that Brontes ordered him to kill her and he couldn't do it. He'd rather die. This annoyed me because even Hylas's suicide attempt couldn't have been about him. Leila makes it out to be about her and even goes so far as to say, I'm trying to stop Brontes, and unlike you, I can't throw myself out a tower. If I die, everyone dies. This kid is suicidal and distressed, and your solution is to make everything about you again? Are you for real? I get that she's the savior, but the title has really gotten so much to her head that she thinks literally everything revolves around her. But Leila is able to talk Hylas down from suicide without any compassion for his situation at all, and convinces him to help her foil her father. Skip forward, and Leila is now daydreaming about exchanging I love yous with Toby and asking if he promises to never leave her, because every man that has ever existed has wronged me. Can you promise me that you're not the same as the others? The dream turns into Toby banging Cosima, and Leila is like, why? Why me? Leila then wakes up and runs to Delphi. She tells Delphi about the bodyguard Asher situation and says, I don't know why he advanced on me. I've been nothing but mean to him. Delphi says, well, that explains it. Men love bitches. To which Leila says, are you calling me a bitch? And Delphi says, it's not a bad thing. Bitches make history. Delphi tells Leila that Toby loves her hard because of the gifts that he left behind. Leila doesn't know about the gift, so she shows Leila a picture that Toby put in the gallery. Her first thing isn't to forgive Toby and to make sure that he's alright, despite how distressed and stressed out he's been. Nah, she's gonna go stalk Brontes for the day instead, before sneaking into Brontes' bedroom looking for hints of his assassination plots, apparently. Skipping forward a bit, Leila talks to the Queen briefly, who trash talks Leo and Flynn with Leila before Leila goes to question Cosima on why she's making moves on Toby. Leila's getting aggressive, so Cosima runs off with the assistance of other servants who already assume Leila's insane. While Cosima runs off, Leila yells, one day, your tears will be real. I promise you that. Which is definitely reassuring to all of the servants who weren't yet sure if Leila was in fact insane at the very least. Leila retreats to cry alone in her bedroom. She changes into a black lacy number, which is convenient because shortly after that, Toby comes running into the room needing to see Leila. He apologizes for calling her a mistake and says that he ran out of Cosima's chambers in panic. Instead of Leila asking if Toby is alright, or what happened, or why he's so panicked, she mocks him about coming in 2 seconds. And it's at this point that I was just like, bitch, are you serious? I don't understand why Toby is still here, why he is chasing after this woman, or why he wants anything to do with her. All she does is mock him for when he feels stressed out, or when he feels insecure, or when he feels down, or in this case, when he was just sexually assaulted. Her first impetus is to mock him, and so I don't understand why he is even here. It doesn't matter how many times Toby says he didn't want to kiss Cosima or be near her. Leila blames him for any touching that happened between them. Not the power structures, not the rules of the tournament, not Cosima abusing her position of power, which Leila has already stated Cosima was doing. No. Toby being in any unfortunate situation is all of his fault. Toby even legitimately says, she forced herself onto me. She said that she would go after the woman that I'm seeing if I don't sleep with her, and Leila still has the gall to say, I trusted you and you betrayed me by kissing her, even if it was forced on you. How dare you? Legitimately, is this a joke? Because Queen of Lying and Gaslighting? Check yourself, please. He betrayed you. You've been lying to him for a month. Your entire relationship is built on a lie. Despite all that, Toby says, no matter what you put me through, I want you, Leila. So I think Toby has a bit of Stockholm syndrome, honestly, and this is just so painful if you're supposed to like Leila or want her to have a happy ending. I'm sorry, I can't. Toby is the tragic character here, but not as tragic as Cosima, and we'll get to that in a bit. Toby tells Leila everything's his fault, and even when she tries to say, no, it's not, he cuts her off to tell her never to apologize for anything because she is perfect. This makes everything better instantly, and Leila is ready to get laid. Her moves are hasty. She's on Toby, ogling and touching his weenie until he says that he's happy he chose her over the savior. Then the tears start flowing again as she says, we've made up, but the problem is still there. Right. The problem. That you lied to Toby and still haven't come clean. That problem. Toby can tell that Leila is stressed, so he says, don't worry about telling me the truth right now. Tell me when you feel like it, baby. I'm so understanding. And so, yet again, she gets away with lying to him and manipulating Toby like nobody else, after forcing him to apologize for being sexually assaulted by her sister. So that's cute. Leila. Leila wakes up with Toby's arms wrapped around her. They briefly talk before Delphi interrupts, and she like, wait, you still haven't told him? And Leila, of course, blames Toby for why he doesn't know yet. He keeps interrupting me, she says. But in reality, she was being long-winded because she sucks. Leila wakes up with Toby's arms wrapped around her. They briefly talk where Leila is going to, well, she says she's going to tell Toby the truth, but Delphi comes in and interrupts them and is like, wait, you haven't told him yet? Leila, of course, blames Toby for why he doesn't know yet, saying he keeps interrupting me, but this whole time Leila has been long-winded to avoid having to tell him. Leila tells Toby that she needs to go check on something, but he should stay here and don't be part of the final round of the tournament. It's fine. and she'll take care of it so he won't get in trouble. Also, while Leila is putting on some clothes, apparently the ghost of Milo is in the mirror staring at her tits because for some reason this was absolutely necessary. Stop defiling the poor man in his grave, please. As Leila and Delphi flee the room, they talk more about Toby's cock and how small Leila is, because why not? Hylas, who is that page boy turned senator, appears to get jewelry to take to Brontes' contact, and then continues off. I don't think he comes back after this moment, so it's not like that really matters. Leila tails Brontes to find out who the traitor is, thus she's hiding in a closet in Brontes' room. Brontes and Cosima come in. Cosima admits to having failed to seduce Toby. Brontes said that she should have just raped him then since he wasn't taking it willingly. Cosima is desperate to please Brontes because he promised her a way out of her life serving Leila by saying she'd get the crown and become queen if she could cut the relationship between Toby and Leila. Now it's too late and Brontes is angry. Out of desperation to save herself, Cosima says, "I'm perfectly capable of any other task your highness wishes," while she touches herself. Brontes grabs Cosima by the hair, throws her onto the bed, and bangs her so hard until he comes. Then he's gone. It looked a lot like rape to me. I'm not sure how else it should be taken, all things considered in the situation, but let me know your thoughts if you've read this scene. Cosima then cleans herself up and leaves. Leila collapses out of the wardrobe she's been hiding in and vomits all over the floor. She leaves the room and finds Delphi telling her that Brontes and Cosima are having sex, and that's it. Also, the package wasn't for Cosima, so there's probably another woman. The two tail after Brontes, where he disappears into a wall passageway, and inside this secret area he meets with the dresser, with Leila's dresser, Cicely, who is desperately in love with Brontes and also his partner in crime. The two talk about Brontes' totally seamless plan to have Leila murdered tonight. Once Brontes is gone, Leila and Delphi pursue Cicely, ultimately beating her to the ground and tying her up. Leila can't get any information out of Cicely, so she does what she does best and tortures the woman by cutting her toes off until she squeals. Turns out that Brontes was the hero Thessen needed all along, and he wanted to end the curse of the Savior. That is, destroy one girl having all of the power over the realm, which, as we've seen over the course of this novel, gave us a 20-year-old girl who murders everyone she doesn't like and mildly disagrees with. Brontes was willing to sacrifice the whole of Thessen to remove this curse of Chosen One from the land. Delphi is like, "Oh my gosh, kill this bitch already. I can't stand women who chase after crazy men." Because Delphi's also a crazy psychopath and is the perfect friend to Leila. Leila tells Delphi to go watch the tournament because she needs eyes out there, but it's clearly just to get rid of Delphi at the moment. With Delphi gone, Leila tells Cicely that Brontes doesn't love her. This doesn't help pry more information out of Cicely, so Leila cuts her. Somehow, Cicely breaks free of her bindings and runs off. Leila catches her again, beats her senseless, and for no reason at all, as Cicely is bleeding out on the ground with no hope of being saved, she tells Leila everything that Brontes has set up. It makes no sense because she still hates Leila and she still believes in Brontes, the love of her life, but she goes ahead and just spills Brontes' master plan and everything that he's been doing, and then Leila finishes Cicely off. It should be noted that it seems Leila struggled more with keeping down seven-toed dressmaker Cicely than she did with some of the senators who were called trained fighters. Leila teleports back to her room to tell Toby the truth of everything because everything is much bigger yikes than previously believed. But Toby is gone and bodyguard Asher is also dead in her door. Looks like Toby is at the final battle, killing Kaleo. Leila appears at the last minute as Toby is in danger. Brontes orders guards to seize her, but she reveals herself as the savior with her light. Toby faints from the wounds and probably in recognition of Leila's light, and she teleports the both of them to Delphi's bedroom. The servants assist Leila in healing Toby up and agree to conceal her from Brontes while they work, but though somehow Brontes would never check Leila's sister's bedrooms first if he was looking for them. Toby eventually wakes up after everything. Leila still doesn't tell Toby that she's the savior. He actually says it for her, and Leila is like, "Yeah, actually, that is me." Leila also pretends to be coy and says that she doesn't know who won the tournament or who she's going to have to marry since there were still 2 people alive at the end. This is pretending that she ever saw the tournament as legitimate or was interested in following tradition at all, so I don't even know why she's doing this to Toby other than to torture him some more. Toby finds out all of the ways that Leila has been lying to him, including not letting him escape to freedom when she could have. But Leila's gotta play the biggest victim card here because no, she is not ever in the wrong. Toby asks why the Sovereign doesn't just kill her if he wants her dead, and Leila's like, it's complicated, okay? You just couldn't possibly understand, so... And that's the end of that. She continues to downplay how she lied to him and tells him to just get over his betrayed feelings because her problems are bigger than his. Dude, she is so unbelievably manipulative. I do not see how there is a legitimate love story here. She is an abusive partner. She even rubs in Toby's panicked state from the night before and never apologizes for how she treated him or for having lied to him. Toby then just lets it all go and feels bad for Leila because of, position she's in. I don't know. They laugh about the dead competitors, and then things start to get steamy again when Delphi comes in with a couple of bags to chase Toby off because the Sovereign is on his way. Toby convinces Leila to go with him, and she does. The 2 visit Toby's house on their way out of town, and Leila gets a moment alone to try and heal Toby's sister, some of her pain at least. Naomi takes this opportunity to ask Leila if she is in fact the real savior, even though it's obvious, and then she too joins Leila in calling Cosima a nobody bitch and praising how cool Leila is because everyone in this book has to either praise Leila or they're on the bad guy side. The 4 of them then leave because Brontes' guards have shown up at Toby's house. On their way out the house, and Toby uses Leila's powers of teleportation to send them somewhere he knows of, which would result in not immediate danger. The end. So, welcome to the after show. That is the majority of that 700-page novel. Yeah, time to get into discombobulated thoughts. So first thing, in my opinion, this book was way worse than the first book. In order of best to worst of Jenna's books, I would say Eve the Awakening is the best, and then Savior's Champion, and then Savior's Sister. But you'll have that comparative book review for Eve once we finish reading it on the Loin stream. That said, the first section of things I would like to talk about with this book are the characters. Why the question on my mind from the very beginning of this, why was Leila even friends with Cosima? Why was Cosima still in Leila's court of favorite maidens or most trusted sisters? It's obvious in their interactions that Leila absolutely abhors Cosima. Even in their first interaction shown when they're children, Delphi and Leila are mean to Cosima for no apparent reason. Is it because Leila adopted Cosima as part of her court when they were children and can't get rid of her now? Is that why the animosity is there? With how she's treated, it's not surprising that Cosima eventually went to Brontes looking for comfort and friendship or some sort of escape because of the way that Leila treats her, even just throughout this novel. There are so many times where Leila's jealous or full-on slights Cosima for no apparent reason other than Cosima is getting a little bit of attention, or she wishes that she had Cosima's body or something like that. None of which is Cosima's fault. Cosima is unbelievably sympathetic. Her entire life revolved around being there for Leila, doing everything Leila asks her without question, which includes standing in as a savior, putting her life in danger, and even when Leila gets mad at Cosima because she's filling the role to the best of her abilities and wows the boys, it's only because she was asked to. But Leila still fumes at her. Not only is Cosima a good savior, but she is too good and too likable, and that's why Leila hates her. Leila is also unabashedly a psychopath. She murders throughout the book and actually finds pleasure in harming others. She's sadistic. She also gets pleasure from hearing Toby harm other people. She's turned on by watching him kill both the giant and the guy whose neck he slits while they're in the labyrinth. She enjoys torturing people, while at the same time she cries about the bodies being piled up in the palace and condemns the bloodlust of her kingdom. During Synopsis, I highlighted so many situations where Leila was being manipulative to those around her. You see it from chapter 1 in the way that she takes Pippa captive. You see it in the way that she and Delphi treat Cosima in the prologue as well, breaking her down. Leila is mean to everyone and is good at destroying their confidence and sense of selves if they're on the outs with her. Again, brief mention to when Leila and Toby were having their fight and she told him to get lost after she'd been lying to him for a month. Then everyone after that asked how things were going and she lied to them, saying that he was the problem, took the sympathy, and turned all of her allies against Toby without pause or a second thought, and never apologized for it. One of the current trends that bothers me is unremorseful female characters, specifically because in part, it feels like the author attempting to create strong female characters, but they're just bitchy, overpowered psychopaths who never apologize or reflect when they've actually wronged somebody. Being a strong female character is not equitable. Is not the same thing as never apologizing when you've hurt somebody. You see this in Leila multiple times, and it's worse because she's later told not to apologize. She's just absolutely perfect, and everything bad that happens to her is never her fault. This is gross. It doesn't show depth, it doesn't show a likable character, and you know what is likable or enjoyable or respectable? When a female character who acts inappropriately maybe takes a pause and grows to be somebody better. It doesn't all even have to happen in the same book. So maybe in the Savior's Army, Leila will reflect on all this stuff and try to do better. But something was missing from Leila's perspective in this to make her softer or give her some softer moments. But when these characters never have a moment of recognition, I can't help but feel like it's in part to say, if I don't acknowledge that the character is acting bad, then they're not actually acting bad and they're acting a badass instead. This sort of behavior isn't cool to me. It's not endearing. It's annoying at minimum and disgusting at worst. And I keep seeing it in books where the author says that these female characters are strong and empowered and badass, but they're just unapologetic, bitchy psychopaths. And look, I love myself some morally gray or even straight up bad or demented characters. It happens. The question that then comes for me is if the author intended for the character to be straight up villain, or does she perceive that the character is somehow good or righteous or holy? Because this happened with, I think, his name was Augustin series too, because I can't look at Swanee as anything other than a villain. But I don't know what that author was thinking when writing her, or if that author is specifically trying to create a villainous female character in which his name was Augustin is a villain's journey, in my opinion. For a better idea on how to review this book, I need to understand what the author believes she's projected and what I picked up on from her depiction, and I just don't have that information. Leila killed a number of people who did nothing to deserve to die. She just did it due to their connection to her father, the king, someone they likely can't tell no to anyway, even if they wanted to. Her first response to any problem is to kill them, and everyone around Leila is a yes man, or they're just plain evil. Even Naomi in her final moments of this book. There is no nuance for anybody here. In comparison to the Savior's champion, Toby looked so much more like a victim of Leila's manipulation, made into a softer target by the trauma. She moved him as a piece in her game against the Sovereign, and when he called her out on it, she got mad at him, manipulated him, and ended up getting him to apologize for being her victim. It's just so gross. The way that Leila talks and acts here comes off that she is way more villainous than Brontes could ever wish to be. I mean, look at this brutality. This is a segment from the book. Leila grabbed Wimbledon's drapes, pulling him close. Let me make this clear. You're alive to serve me. Stray from my side and find this blade buried in your gut. She pointed the tip to his stomach. I will split you nose to navel and strangle you with your entrails. Do you understand me? I am your loyal servant, now and always. She pressed the blade deeper, enough to tear his tunic. This girl isn't protecting herself with words like that. You don't need those kinds of details or that kind of threat to be a good guy in a bad situation or a morally gray person in a rough situation. This was the threat of a villain, and if that's what the author was going for, great on you. You landed it. There was just never any reason for me to hope that Leila 1 survived, 2 got a love interest, and 3 regained power, because she is a brutal leader. And honorable mention, in determining Leila wants a decoy savior, she goes, I might get murdered, so I'm gonna let Cosima be me, but I'm not going to inform her of the risks to her life. She's always wanted to be queen, right? Well, now she can take all of the risks without knowing. The bitch deserves it. Also, a side note on the evilness of dude bros in the tournament, how incredibly thoughtful of them that despite how hard they go after Leila to sexually harass her and hit on her and try to take advantage of her and even feel her up without asking, they never once try to sweet talk Pippa or walk her off somewhere or take advantage of her agreeable and naive nature. How nice that while these guys are all jackasses, they're not so much evil jackasses that they see a naive girl like Pippa and automatically assume that she's got a developmental delay and not even bother with her in any inappropriate way. That doesn't make sense at all. After all of this, Leila still has the gall to ask, what makes me so hard to love? Sweetie, there's a mirror. Take a look at yourself. Leila's victimization. So I'm going to make this point briefly because it builds into everything else. Leila's constant need to be the one and only victim was so annoying in this story. She is simultaneously the most powerful creature in the kingdom, but also the most powerless victim for no logical reason. If something bad happened to someone else, she always made it about her. Hylas attempted suicide, it was about her. Cosima and Toby's sexual assault, they were about her. Her lying and Toby being broken and betrayed, about her. Toby losing his friends in a murder tournament, over her. He gets mocked for being upset and she goes, well, at least you've got me. The universe revolves solely around Leila, and she never reflects on this position she holds for everybody. Never gave anyone a chance to receive her empathy, and never actually softened to anybody that she couldn't just use to manipulate their favor or weak emotional state. So, sexual assault and sex in this book. Let's talk about it because it comes up a lot, and it comes up to be an important pivotal point at the end of this book, and I didn't mention it with the Savior's Champion. So, this is something that really irritated me, especially as I rewrote the synopsis. Leila's manipulation was off the charts, but when it comes to the sex specifically, and I'm interested in others' opinions on this, if you read into it the way that I did, obviously with art and storytelling, there's a level of personal interpretation that takes place based on experiences and point of view and the way that you absorb information, so we're all going to take these things differently. Where this got me was how not only dismissal Leila was about Toby's sexual harassment, but how she made Cosima's rape about her as well. Both characters are literal peasants, dealing with the most powerful people in the kingdom, Brontes the king and Leila the queen or savior. Both not only have the ability, but the willingness to murder on a dime. Throughout the entirety of the book, Leila has not only been dismissive of Cosima, but actually bullied her. So it's no wonder that she went looking for a way out through Brontes. Leila, seeing Cosima used the way that she was, threatened the way that she was, and only thinking that bitch slut, showed such a lack of empathy for her character, in her character. I don't know how you're supposed to care about Leila. There was not a second where she was not thinking about herself first. Toby came to her first thing after being sexually assaulted. He told her that Cosima forced herself on him. We have confirmation in this through the conversation with Brontes. We have Toby saying that he was threatened, which makes it rape. Leila screams at him for betraying her and never apologizes for the way that she treated him. It's disgusting. I don't even know where else to go from here. On the subject of sex talk throughout the book, the girls talk about sex in the same way that the boys do, but the readers are supposed to be disgusted by the way the boys talk about sex with girls and not the way the girls talk about sex with boys. I'm gonna go back to book 1 where we're in Toby's POV and we get the boys' experiences with the maidens watching him, touching him, making comments about his body and harassing him sexually while they're touching every crevice and sensitive part of his body. There is no difference from the way Leila was come on to by the boys with other than the way Toby was touched, but the girls are not demonized for the way they talked about and touched Toby. This book reeks of a double standard where it's okay to mistreat men and be completely inappropriate as a female, but if you're a man, you're the freaking devil. This actually irritates me because male abuse victims get overlooked or mocked often when they come forward, and that's just what the heroine in this book did. All of that aside, the sex talk in this book was unrealistic, constant, and over the top. It was repetitive and it dragged on like it was attempting to make a point, but it became a joke of itself for how long it dragged on. Also, returning to the point that I made with book 1, there's no reason that Brontes should have stopped Kaleo from raping Toby in that final moment, and this book makes the argument for it by having Brontes order Cosima to force herself on Toby. He was trying to break them apart. Leila had also already shown that if Toby was aggressed on sexually by someone else, she would have blamed him for it. So what's more, Bronte could have rubbed it in that Leila had all of these chances to take Toby's virginity, but she didn't, and so Kaleo got it. The disconnects in the plot. Brontes' entire life revolves around killing Leila to either destroy Thessen or to take ultimate power over the realm. He's had his chances for 20 years. Heck, he could have even killed Leila after she was brought home as a baby and claimed that it was from complications that arose out of the emergency C-section performed by a peasant. He could have then just gotten his jollies off executing another peasant and then had, another murder just because why not? But that didn't happen. Whether his hatred toward Leila was out of animosity towards who her true father was, or his lack of ability to control her, or his fear of her, he never followed through on any of his plans that he said that he had. He was completely hands off for the entire assassination and control of the tournament, despite how important it was for his life goal. It made no sense that he would pay zero attention at all to the whole thing he set up to kill his daughter with, especially when he knew that she was killing senators. That should have made him zone in closer and watch her closer for what she was doing so she couldn't get away with more stuff. His alarm should have increased the second the senators started dying, but nothing was done. Everything with Brontes turned out to be convenience to allow Leila to get away with what she was doing, unchallenged, and to avoid having to come up with creative reasons for her to accomplish what she wanted. This made Brontes unbelievable and story flat because nothing made sense and nothing mattered. The writing is just, Brontes is dumb and evil. Ha. And I still don't believe that he didn't tell the hired assassins what his own daughter looked like. They couldn't have not known that was her running around the labyrinth the whole time. If anyone can offer me a reason as to why the assassins wouldn't know, I'm down to listen. So Leila's powers, we don't know the limits of. The author says that each generation of Savior, a new power is discovered, born, or developed in the Savior. So we don't know if what Leila showed us in this book is even all that there ever will be. And from the way that the story is told, probably not. But Leila is super strong by the way that she fought the men in this book. She's fast, she teleports, there's nothing that it doesn't seem she can't, it seems like there's nothing she can't do. There's no reason she couldn't just kill Brontes, even if she claims, I have to take down his criminal ring. That wasn't a strong enough reason to not end him when she was literally offing senators one by one. Just kill the rats in the palace. She was using other people as methods of finding his rats anyway. And what's another kingdom going to do when you take over the castle and the army? I don't know. This is just another way for me to say that the whole geopolitical angle of this book didn't work because it wasn't fully developed, and Leila had more than enough ability to take down anyone and everyone she wanted. We saw it continuously throughout the novel. It was totally impossible to buy into Leila's victimhood status when she was made so powerful. She was literally referred to as the savior and worshipped by her kingdom. But she's somehow worse off than everyone else around her. She needed a point in which her abilities were limited, and we never got that. An interesting choice would have been if she loaned out her abilities, then she lost the ability to use them until she got them back. This would have put her in a much more vulnerable position when going down to see the boys, because she could have given her transportation or her teleportation powers to Pippa for safety, which would have made her more like a sitting duck if any of the guys came after her. This also could have become a part of the murder plot against Leila, as Brontes recruited people to get Leila's trust so that she would loan out her abilities one by one until she was vulnerable enough that he could just straight up murder her. If this limit existed, it also would have been a great setup for tension in the future when Leila and Toby are on the run. Imagine that he's going out to scavenge for them and she just gives him the teleportation ability. While he's out, she's left alone in an unknown place outside of the palace walls where she's never really been before, and this could have amped up her fear of being vulnerable to all sorts of things, even making her paranoid. It would have been so good for building tension and panic and fear. But instead, there are no limits to her powers. She can just give her powers out to every servant that comes to see her in the end there. So she's got like 20 people now or 100 people now that can randomly teleport with no end in sight to their abilities, because we're also still never told when the abilities cease to work, because she makes it look like she doesn't have power over that when she gives it to Cosima, and then she's afraid of Cosima using the power against her, which implies that she can't take her powers back. But we're not given any clear reasoning for how any of this works, so I don't know. Cosima is the biggest victim of this book. Consider how Pippa was procured for Leila's fold of sisters. Now consider that Cosima did not have a choice to become Leila's friend either. She didn't have a choice in giving up her life. She didn't have a choice in leaving. She was forced to make her entire life revolve around Leila, to put Leila first, to stay in the castle, to keep Leila company, to exist for Leila. And from the first scene we see of them as children, Leila has always hated Cosima. She had a life of being bullied by the one person that she was forced to serve for the entirety of her life, and with no escape, as Leila wouldn't let her go, and she couldn't quit. Cosima then saw an out through Brontes, offering her the crown in exchange for working with him against Leila. Could you blame her for taking that deal? He was also a user, though, so she was between both the most powerful people in the realm and with no way out of either. She was abused physically, emotionally, mentally, and sexually by the king and queen of her realm. Her life was put in danger without her knowing. She loyally took the role of Leila's decoy without question when asked, and did her best to perform it, even keeping Leila's secret. My guess is that she isn't even the one who told Brontes. Cecily knew. That's just an assumption, though. But after giving up her entire life to this person who was the number one, who was the savior, whose life all of creation orbited, Cosima did what she could to have some positive attention to herself the only way that she knew how, by sleeping with people. Leila trash talks Cosima for this while praising her BFF Delphi this entire time for doing the exact same thing, though her best friend is focusing on deflowering the maidens of the house instead of the mans. But who cares, right? Cosima was a constant victim here, trying to get out of a bad situation. The Savior's sister would have been much more interesting if it had been from her perspective of trying to get out of this bad situation, especially if we went with the idea that Pippa was the true savior, and Cosima either knew or eventually found out and had to keep the secret too, since Leila would punish her if she spilled that information, thus having to play act for Leila while trying to help Brontes get his daughter back. This book would have been such a compelling read if it had been from that perspective with Cosima, and I'm kind of upset that this story didn't go there. Anyway, I don't get the hate this author has for Cosima, but then it comes off like narration in this despises anyone that's not Leila. She's the center of the universe, and anyone who even shows signs of stubbing their toes should be mocked and discarded until they stop complaining, because Leila is the only one who is allowed to suffer. Okay, so logical question time. Number one, why did Leila even ask Cosima to pretend to be the savior when she hated her the entire time? Number two, if the sovereign has all of the control and Leila has nothing to do with the tournament decision, why is she involved in any of the votes or called to any of the meetings? Number three, Leila argues with Cosima that Toby should have won the first impressions round. Why? And what changed to the point that she did not want Toby to win later rounds? If Toby is so good at art, how did he not get a paying job through his famous artist mentor? Why did he have to quit to do field work? He should have been able to get clients through his mentor, since his mentor was also famous, working for royalty. 5. In the water scene, it makes no sense for Romulus to defy Leila even when she's pretending not to be the savior, because he knows that his daughter/Pippa is in the balance. It's the only reason that he's obeying Leila to begin with, so why would he take that moment to snub her when his daughter is constantly at risk and his own life is also constantly at risk? He knew that he would have to pay for that later, so that decision made no sense. 6. Delphi handpicked most of the bachelors. How did she not recognize the assassins? Because she didn't pick them. How did she also not think of Enzo when they needed somebody to read a specific language? She should have been immediately aware of these people from having picked them. Meanwhile, how do you end up with 2 gay guys, a suicidal widower, 3 assassins, and everyone else is an asshole when you're the theoretical best friend supposed to be picking a perfect husband? Delphi either despises Leila or she knows nothing about people. Or she's in love with Leila and just wanted to screw over her opportunity of finding a good husband. And then 7, at some point in the story, a servant came up to Leila to tell her that everyone thought that she was nuts and murderous and was being followed around by guards to make sure she didn't hurt anyone. However, that only lasted for a scene. Guards never stopped Leila from doing anything. So how is it that Leila was openly called insane and noted for attacking people, yet had no one chaperoning her at all, and this didn't complicate things, period? It made no risk to doing anything, because even if she looked crazy, none of her plans were going to change, she wasn't going to be challenged, and things were going to go on business as usual. Plot suggestions. Pippa was the true savior all along and also Brontes' real daughter. But Leila, who was chosen to be one of Pippa's sisters, ended up manipulating her because she wanted the attention and the power and the authority and didn't want to be second string. She convinced Pippa that they're friends, and because of that, Pippa gave over her powers to Leila. Since then, Leila's been threatening to kill Pippa and forcing Brontes to pretend that she is the true savior and his actual daughter all these years. Pippa doesn't know that this has been going on because she trusts Leila so much. The plot to kill Leila is Brontes trying to get his daughter back from Leila and to kill her darkness from the realm. Meanwhile, Leila's trying to kill Brontes so she can assume her full position of power that she wants. She then manipulates Toby, using his adoration for her to become the beast that she uses to slay the Sovereign. This would have turned this into a dark romance, with Leila being a villain who constantly acted as a victim when she was orchestrating her complete takeover of the kingdom the whole time, while we also have a tragic story of a father trying to get his daughter back. This also could have worked with Talos still being Leila's father, real father, and him wanting to get back at Brontes because he wanted to rule the kingdom. Or he could have just been played by Leila as well. And then here are just some miscellaneous final thoughts in closing. The capitalization of every pronoun that referred to Leila was a choice. It also got overlooked sometimes. It was used for people that were not Leila, so I think that kind of got mixed in with the editing. Cicely wouldn't have spilled all of Brontes' plans in that final scene, but it was just a lazy way to explain it all before she died. If the Sovereign were smart about his hate for Toby, he would have blessed Toby to make Leila question Toby's intentions and loyalty, because she would have definitely fallen for that and thought that he was an assassin. There's also a weird juxtaposition of Leila saying, "I can't believe the bloodthirst of my people, and they are all disgusting," with her bloodlust of her murdering people, getting excited about murdering people and brutally murdering people. Also getting excited when Toby murders people. I already mentioned it, but the trope I can't stand is female characters who abuse and lie to others, and it's never allowed to be acknowledged that they hurt other people. They are always the victims, and they're never in the wrong. One of the biggest problems with this novel is that we already know how everything in it turns out, because this is the second one and it plays the same situation that was in The Savior's Champion. I think this, so any of the tension in any of the scenes of will they or won't they survive is totally gone, since we know the outcome. I think this would have been more successful if The Savior's Champion and The Savior's Sister had been combined and were dual POV the whole time. I don't think the reveal of Leila being the Savior was a good enough twist to justify having two separate books / 1,400 pages. And then finally, Leila's more of a villain than Brontes changed my mind. So those are my thoughts on this book. Most of my thoughts, though not all of them. I did have to condense them, and we're still this long. So looking forward to your thoughts down in the comments below. Did you enjoy this book? Did you not enjoy this book? What do you think of the representations, or the way that Leila is written in this, or the sexual assault in this book? Am I reading way too much into these situations? And how do you feel about Cosima? Let me know all of that and more down in the comments below. Until next time, thank you so much for watching. Have a great weekend, and don't die.
Was that Wayland Cross in the trunk? Do you know, or is that something that's still being figured out? The person in the trunk was not Wayland Cross. Is he in trouble? We don't know who did it, but as the owner of the car, the longer he's missing, the worse it looks for him. Cross isn't a killer. For the last couple of years, the average number of murders in Baltimore has been over 300, and it's been going up. Mind you, that's only whatever the badges count as official murder, and believe me, there are people that don't count when they die. Wayland? If you're down here, tell me. I'm not talking to the badges, I've been looking for you. They found a body in your trunk. Why? Did you do that? To the left, plain black letters read along the wall. You walked in the corridor. Once that ends, you chose the dark is on the right. My vision goes blurry. Flickers black and black and black for longer intervals until I can't see anything at all. I'm not screaming anymore, but my voice echoes back to me. Where the hell am I? You're dead, Josephine. Even smart people do stupid shit sometimes, right?